The first thing I wanted to start with is the experience of customers of BCRS. Okay, one thing that we've sort of heard a lot is people complaining that there are long queues, that the machines aren't working. What's BCRS's response to this, and how much of a problem is this?
We would like to proclaim obviously our successes, but we know what's the complaints outside there are. We need to, however, to go into the merits of what's causing these queues. Okay, as I said, there's a manual collection system that on this island is not being used. If a retailer in my village or in my street decides to make use of this manual collection, I don't see the need for me to get my bottles to a machine to basically deposit them and get my money back. By just going into the retailer, okay, and that is literally down the road, okay, and depositing the bottles there, queues will automatically come down.
For a lot of people, though, they will look at these long queues and say, and to them it's quite simple, they'll say, why do we just not have that many machines? I mean, I think you mentioned there are around 349, something like this, machines. Now, obviously, Malta has a population of 500,000, you know? I mean, in terms of a ratio there, I mean, is that enough?
In terms of the ratio, if you see it per 1,000 capita, we actually equate to the average of the other DRSs.
Right.
Okay? But we are understressing the importance of the manual collection. You don't need to go to the machine itself to deposit bottles. If the supermarket next to you offers to take the bottles, the queue is solved.
I see. So you'd advocate for people to make use of those.
Yeah, I advocate to the retail outlets to start offering more the service, which they are obliged to offer.
Really? I mean, I know you said, just to sort of press on that a little bit more, that
and not just that, but even the restaurants and the catering need to do their part as well. Okay. Rather than sending everything to the RVMs, okay, in a way or another, we can literally, they have an app, they just book the service, and we come and collect. There are actually instances that we can easily collect 4 or 5 times a week, or even daily in certain locations, you know. So the service is there. It's just a matter that they need to make use of it. And it's free.
Okay.
I mean, that's the point. It's free. It's free for the retailers on all the bags, okay? When it comes to the Horeca, the restaurant and caterings, they have 25 free bags every month. And then if they want additional bags, it comes at a charge, if I'm not mistaken, of 320 euros 20 per bag. And if it's Gozo, it's a bit more. It's around 450, I think, for Gozo, something along those lines.
But do you not think there's still an argument to be made that we still need more machines? I mean, for example, Times of Malta reported recently that a guy created an app specifically because he'd been sick of waiting in lines. You know, we've had things where one of our journalists went round, they spoke to people, and they even saw someone who'd, you know, they'd seen a previous machine who said, oh, and this is, you know, the third or fourth machine I'm coming to. And clearly there's a lot of frustration there. I mean, why can't we just put more machines in?
That's the easiest answer to say. Yes, we want to do another machines, but first we need to address the root cause. The root cause, I'm going to say it again, before we just saw it, that the manual collection equates to only 10% of the collection. Just 10% coming from the retail outlets, okay, from manual. Just imagine that this doubles, or actually it's 3-4 times, okay? The load on the machines will automatically vanish. The first approach is not to put the machines. It's actually to consolidate the network and improve on the manual. We don't have spare machines because if we have spare machines, they're already outside. Okay. The next is the manual collection.
You mentioned in our discussion earlier the sort of, you know, the sort of public perception of the scheme and what have you. And I think it's safe to say if you go on Facebook, if you look at a lot of the comments, if you look at even comments on, you know, under our articles as well, it seems like there's a certain amount of anger there, you know, at people feeling like the system isn't efficient, that it doesn't sort of work for them. They almost feel like, you know, they've been inconvenienced in a way. Suddenly they have to take up their time doing all this stuff. And this probably factors into what we just spoke about, you know, the machines. But for you guys as an organization, how do you feel when you read those comments?
No, we're not happy about them. We're actually irked because on one thing we want to celebrate success of the scheme, okay, which honestly started sprinting from its infant stages. I mean, the first day that we started the machine, the system, we literally started collecting and we haven't stopped as yet, okay? So we also see a first in its own for Malta, being the first in the Mediterranean that's actually achieving these targets. It's not something small to actually to mention, okay? And then you find comments. Some of them are just, okay? I'm not saying that these bad reviews or comments are not realistic. The others are just. Some are just. Some of them, obviously, they are the frustration coming from probably not enough information that we give, okay, outside there. I believe that the frustration of the people is, yes, when you go outside there, you want your money back, because at the end of the day, it's your money, and you don't find the machine available for you to be able to take. But again, even if I put double the machines, okay, yes, it will solve it. But for the time being, since the investment has been made, we need to focus on our current tools. Our current tools are machines and the manual collection, which, as per law, I say it again, that the retail outlets are mandated that they need to collect. Now, I do acknowledge that there are supermarkets or retailers that don't have enough space. I do acknowledge that, but there are others who have. So I would like those people to reach out to those retailers that have space where they can store these bags to be able to make use and offer service to the public.
You mentioned there, though, about maybe you sort of said maybe we need to be better at communicating certain information. What kind of information do you think, would be
I think it's, first of all, we need to communicate outside there what is BCRS here for, okay? It's not something that we are imposing on the public because we act for fun, It is an obligation now that each and every member state needs to have a DRS. All right. We were one of the first that actually started this. If you go to the Scandinavian countries, okay, they are pioneers of this. It's been there for 25, 30 years. Okay, we are catching up, and we're actually catching up even faster than other member states.
With the quantum machines that you have, how come we're not seeing more of those? And are there plans to scale up the number of these?
Let's go a bit more than 12 months ago. These were actually not planned. But the company decided that, yes, it needs to do an investment of 2 million euros to actually buy these machines, which it did. It put them in strategic locations. Currently, we have 8. The ninth one should be coming in the next coming of weeks in Gozo. And currently, the 10th one, we're finding a location in St. Paul's Bay Area to actually allocate one there. Will there be other machines in the future? Today, I can't tell you there will be, but possibly, yes, why not?
What kind of rate of troubleshooting, should we say, are you seeing at the machines at any one time? Like, what's your kind of average?
You're talking about machines not being available?
Yes, not being available.
It depends on the load. It depends on the load. It depends on the period. Because probably if you go right now, I would say that the machines, forget the bin full part. Okay, because the bin full is obviously dependent on the usage of the machine. From a breakdown perspective, you go now, probably the rate is very low. But when you go to summer, when the machines are really being hit, I mean, we were just saying, last August, we were reaching even over 1 million containers every day. No joke. For a population that, with tourists and everything, goes up to 700,000 people in summer. 1 million containers every day is literally no joke. Then, yes, there we saw a bit of a stress on the infrastructure. Controllable, yes, up to a certain point, because obviously we're talking about mechanical issues that if can't be resolved there and then, you need to wait for parts, you need to wait for a lot of things until they come, and eventually they are replaced.
Some people have also complained that even if the machine's working, they're putting bottles in, for some reason it's not being accepted, they're having to kind of why is that happening? So
there are two possibilities. Let's say the one that I raise my hand and I say probably it's BCRS's fault-ish, okay? So the containers are actually accepted based on recognition, okay? So the more we clean, the better acceptance there is in the machines. Doesn't mean that BCRS doesn't clean. I have to say that. Our machines are practically almost cleaned every day, okay, thoroughly. Unfortunately, it's not the first time that after we clean, unfortunately, machines get dirty once again. The second one is the bottle itself. So you could have either the bottle is 3 actually. Either the bottle is not within the scheme, either the bottle is within the scheme and has not been registered with us. Thirdly, it could be because either the design, the bottle is perforated, or it's not properly squashed, or along those lines, which makes it obviously difficult for the machine to understand what container we're talking about.
So we're saying that it's not an issue with the sort of sophistication of the machines. It's an issue with what's being put into them.
It's also a sophistication of the machine, because we have introduced last November or December, if I'm not mistaken, we actually beefed up a bit the anti-fraud software that we had to deploy. Okay, that actually
where maybe
it doesn't have user experience, but obviously there's a scheme that one needs to protect as well. So it's one thing, we just don't decide to do an anti-fraud system because we decide to do so. We need to protect the scheme as well. But I think it's important that the message goes through that we are listening to the things that people are telling us. And we are listening also to constructive solutions. Constructive solutions that need to be also cost effective. Okay? As I said before, it's easy to just decide, listen, I want to invade Malta with machines. We are a not-for-profit organization. Okay? Again, you've seen it. It doesn't mean that we don't do profits. And the profits would need to reinvest it. But till today, okay, those profits are not there.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about that side of things for a second. Why hasn't BCRS filed its financial accounts yet for last year?
They're currently being audited, and eventually they will be submitted like a normal private company.
Okay. How, in terms of, do you have any indication at the moment of how much in profits was made last year?
No profits, zero. You can ask me about the losses though.
Okay. How many losses?
We are talking over $1 million.
Over $1 million?
Yes.
Over $1 million losses. So
and that's only 2023. 2022, you have the accounts which have been published. If I'm not mistaken, we are talking about another 1.2 million.
Finance the operation.
This company, to operate last year, had 12 million euro worth of costs.
I spoke to one bar owner who said that he was losing around 4,000 euros a year. And he was mentioning things that, for example, the rejection
because of BCRS?
Yes, exactly. He was saying that, for example, with the rejection rate roughly hovering around, say, 10 to 15%, and one of the things that he mentioned is that obviously when it wasn't just a case of not receiving the 10 cents back per container that was rejected, but then there's this fine that BCRS levies as well, a 10-cent fine.
No, let's put everything into perspective.
That there is no fine?
I'm gonna answer you to this. From the beginning of the scheme, and actually I think it was a discussion with the catering stakeholders, on each and every invoice that we issued, we always sent a number at the bottom of the invoice saying the rejects that occurred during the month on his account. What rejects are we talking about? Because now there is, in the scheme has bottles, predefined bottles that can be accepted. Okay, so the first and foremost is bottles of wine don't fall under the scheme. Okay, deodorants don't fall under the scheme, and I'm not joking. Suntan lotions don't fall under the scheme. And there are other things that I'm not going to say them because they're not nice to listen. Things that, quite frankly, we also had to stop operations because we received them, because they were dangerous to our people when processing them.
Okay, but this is a bar owner. I mean, he knows not to put sunscreen containers in there. He knows very much. He wants to get his money back.
No, wait. You'll be surprised. So the answer to this specific person, I'm not saying it was him. Now, you mentioned the 10 cents fine. Now, yes, there were discussions that this will be introduced.
Okay.
Okay. Has it been introduced? No.
Okay.
We're not charging it. Okay. Will we be charging it? We're still talking with stakeholders. The idea of the 10 cents fine, it's not to get money. It's to deter people for sending us things that shouldn't be sent.
Okay.
And to use effectively in a more efficient way, the bags allocated to them.
Okay, but just to kind of answer that for a second. I mean, I spoke to multiple bar owners, and this isn't just based on the experience of one person. And the feeling there is that, I mean, firstly, they feel they are doing their best, but there are sort of two things. One thing they said, for example, that if the label is ripped a little bit, that can mean it's rejected. It doesn't even have to, for example, have suffered structural damage, the item they're sending back.
Wait, they're being too precise in their statement, but in all fairness, that's what not happens, and we also spoken with them. If a bottle can't be recognized, it can't be accepted. Mm-hmm. Clear. If the barcode is slightly ribbed, we will make it our best to try manually have the machine accepted it. 1, 2, 3, 4 times. You've seen the operation, okay? It's quite fast, but we still try and make sure that if possible, the 10 cents is given back. When we really don't manage it, because we can't do it.
So how is that done? Is that to say that there are people who are manually doing checks for things that don't pass?
Firstly, if there's this bottle, okay, which doesn't pass, okay, it goes as a reject. Okay, the operator, if obviously he can see it's this type of bottle, he will try and pass it, or possibly even get another one like it and pass it itself, and then pass it, and then both of them would pass. Maybe. We actually send them also a list, if they want to, of what has been rejected. Mm-hmm. So no, probably possibly. I don't think we are sending it immediately, but if they are on request, we actually give that.
So even if you can't identify, even if that 10 cents isn't going back to that person, it's still recycled. Yes. Okay, because this is going to be one of my questions in terms of what happens. So all the rejects are still recycled nonetheless.
Yes. If it's glass, we need to do something with it. Mm-hmm. So if we can try and in a way wash it and recycle it, we do it.
On that point, why do wine bottles not feature in the scheme?
Because that's how the BCRS works. More the way it is, there's a particular set of rules governing the bottles. This is what we collect, and this is part of the scheme.
Sure, but I think a lot of people will still be confused as to why wine can't be going through the scheme. At the end of the day, beer bottles do go through the scheme. They also contain alcohol.
Because it's a beverage scheme. It's a beverage container scheme.
And wine doesn't count as a beverage?
Wines are excluded.
But why? That's what I'm trying to understand. Why?
Because that's how the scheme works.
Okay.
It doesn't mean that tomorrow it will change or not. Today, that's how things are.
Right. But, I mean, do other countries within Europe recycle wine bottles?
To tell you the truth, there are also countries who exclude glass.
Okay, but are there countries that do include wine?
There are others that include, there are others that exclude.
Uh-huh. It just seems like quite a kind of large gap there in the reasoning, and I think this is what people...
Let's put it this way, I'm not here to talk about recycling in general. We are here talking about BCRS and what are the containers that pass through the scheme. I mean, that has been agreed to, and that's how it is.
Moving away from borrowing just 1 second, let's talk about small producers, you know, maybe kind of craft beer, things like this, these kind of small operators, okay. One complaint they've had is that they have this 4 cents admin fee. I mean, you mentioned it in your statistics earlier. And I mention this because this is part of this sort of picture of frustration that we've encountered when we've been speaking to various stakeholders within this scheme, okay? And they feel a little bit jaded that, well, they're doing the administration, so why are they having to pay an admin fee?
What administration are they doing? Exactly.
Well, they're saying that they're registering the details of
First
the
of all,
bottles
they're
on their
registering the
reports.
details, but secondly, then there's a process to actually register the bottle online. They're not that admin fee, administration fee is part of the finance needed to run the scheme. Let's see, rather than an administration fee, we call it a placement fee as well.
One of the other concerns people have is that as part of registering their products, they're giving over a lot of their operational company data. Okay, there's essentially a breakdown of exactly what they're selling going to BCRS.
Yes.
Yes, okay.
Yes.
Now, we've spoken to people in this situation, and 2 of them have said that quite soon into the scheme being operational, they were approached by companies involved with BCRS to offer...
Come again? Involved?
As in companies that form part of BCRS. Asking them basically to, well, in one case, and of course it could be completely unrelated, but in one case asking to buy out their product, in another case, start sort of directly competing with them on specific products from small producers. Can you see how this might be worrying to people who are giving over their company data, what they're selling, for example, to their biggest competitors in there?
Let's put it this way. What we actually receive is a bottle. That bottle can be purchased from practically anywhere. Agreed? So the data would be there just the same. What I can say is that any data that is being received by BCRS is kept confidential. We call it in a black box, okay? And no one has access to it.
No one has access to it.
No. In fact, they actually place on the market, all right? And that placement, we don't know we don't know how much it is. So if there are these two bottles per barcode, we just received that there were two of glass. We don't know what they were.
Okay.
It could be anything. Then obviously there's the authority that can have access to this information. So no, I definitely rebut back those allegations. There are valid concerns which have been responded to. I can say that during my term, there were never such things that could have possibly been. I always reiterate the same thing. This structure of BCRS, so it's corporate governance, is the same like anyone else who's adopting a DRS. So again, we are not reinventing the wheel. DRS is owned by who? By the producers, by the importers, by the retailers, in general. Okay, so the scheme works like that, and from the data perspective.
And the staff that work at BCRS, are they solely employed by BCRS, or do you, for example, pool any of the staff between companies that are involved with BCRS and BCRS?
Okay, if we're seeing whether there's any people here working at BCRS that could work with competition, let's go this way, the answer is no.
One thing I wanted to ask you as well about is you talked about these recycling certificates before, and how you sort of guarantee that the recycling is really happening, if you like. How does it work?
How it works is basically very simple. The process is when we collect, we sort, we export. It's received from the recycler's end. They obviously check what they have to check. Eventually, they issue us a receipt, a certificate, pardon, okay, attestating that container has been used for the production of new beverage containers. I believe that this information, we pass them over to the authority. So once a year, every quarter we pass these certificates to the authorities, because obviously we are bound to do them. So
what would you say to people who say, we're recycling stuff overseas, like we just talked about? Obviously that adds a carbon cost to that, transporting the materials. Are there any plans to start recycling locally?
To tell you the truth, that's a very valid question. Currently, we are seeing the possibility of seeing what we can do locally with glass. Glass is the biggest, I would say, pollutant that there could be in terms of the recycling and transportation and everything. We're actually discussing also various times with universities to see what we could do. Honestly, I really hope that we can find usage of glass here locally in Malta.
Could we expect a glass recycling plant within the next 2 or 3 years?
To tell you the truth, there's rather than the recycling plant, WASEF have just launched an investment which they did to actually separate the glass, which is already a very, very good thing for the island. And eventually, when it's being exported to the recyclers, it's a step in their production less that is being done here. Does it solve completely what you are saying? No, but I think it's a step in the right direction, in my opinion.
Okay. Will BCRS be able to use those facilities, or
we are discussing on all options available to us.
All right. Lovely. Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate your time. Okay.
So one last thing, just now to put it, 16th November, Saturday, we actually have an open day at first. We invite basically everyone to come over, see with their own eyes what's happening after they actually deposit their container at a location. Come over here, come and see, ask questions. There will be tours, some fun things for the children. So hope to see a lot of you over here.